All right, so this video is for the Messianic Jews. This is a bit of a rebuke because of what the errors are going on. And we're going to start with the number one thing that is wrong with what the Messianic Jews are doing, and that is not loving their neighbors as themselves, specifically the Christian ones, because they're not teaching them to stop doing Christmas, to stop breaking the Sabbath day, to stop eating pork, all these sins that they are doing but you guys know is actually sinful. So they need to be doing this too. And that's what it means to love your neighbor as yourself, as our friend Bible Thumper is going to read here, because a lot of them are the lost 10 tribes of Israel. So they need to be keeping Sabbath too. They need to stop eating pork. So go ahead and read that passage you got there in Leviticus 19.
All right. Leviticus 19, verse 17 through 18. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. Thou shalt avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord. So, I mean, that's just proof that you have to love your neighbor as yourself because that's what Yeshua is quoting when he says that every time. And then we'll go to Ezekiel 33, verse 6 through 7. But if the watchmen see the sword come, and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the words at my mouth, and warn them from me. Right? And that's what Mark 13 verse 37 is quoting when Yeshua says, "And what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch." Right? So he wants you to watch, which means be a watchman. That means rebuke the sin from the house of Israel. That means watch over the church too. And it also means preach the gospel.
Exactly, yeah. And part of the gospel that they don't realize is that they need to be keeping these commandments. So being a watchman warned the house of Israel, and the house of Israel was scattered into the northern country and went all over the world. They mixed and migrated, and the lost 10 tribes, a lot of them are in the Christian churches. That's why he tells you to be a watchman for the house of Israel, not the house of Judah, although obviously do warn them too, because you are still supposed to love your neighbor as yourself, as Bible Thumper just read. That means to rebuke the sin from them so you do not bear guilt because of them. So if you see someone go in error, and you don't rebuke them, you become a partaker of their sin. So this is the royal law in James chapter 2. It's very important that you actually fulfill it and warn the lost 10 tribes, which are in the Christian churches. And I'm going to prove that with what Paul he says in Romans 9, verses 24 to 26 here. So he takes a prophecy from Hosea 1 that hopefully you were familiar with, and he applies it, which was about Israel, to the Gentiles in Rome. So he's basically saying, you guys, a lot of you are scattered from, uh, or a lot of you guys are the lost 10 tribes that scattered into the Gentiles and mixed their seed with them. So let's read this. Romans 9. Even us whom he hath called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles. As he saith also in Hosea, I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which was not beloved. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living God. So this is quoting Hosea chapter 1. So if you go read that, you'll see that that's specifically directed towards Israel, and Paul is putting this verse towards Israel and using it towards the Gentiles. So they are the lost 10 tribes, a lot of them. You can also see this in prophecy. This is very important that you understand the difference between the two houses, because in all of Israel, that's not just Jewish. Jews are only two, technically three of the 10 tribes of Israel, Judah, Benjamin, then, Levi, because they mixed with Judah. That's what Jew means. It just means from Judah. So there's still these lost 10 tribes that were scattered abroad, and they're not Jewish, but they still need to be keeping these commandments because they're part of the covenants too. And this will really prove it. So Ezekiel 37, this shows where the Christians are, and like it very clearly explains the distinction between the two houses. So Ezekiel 37, I'm going to start in verse 19. Say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put him with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in mine hand. And the sticks whereon thou writest shall be in thine hand before their eyes. And say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all. That's Yeshua. And they shall no more be two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all. So it's very clear right there. There's the house of Israel, there's the house of Judah. Judah is the Jews, the house of Israel, a lot of them are in the Christians. So they're among the heathen. You need to be rebuking them and not hating them in your heart. Don't just be like, oh, they're just going, go and ignore them. They can do their own thing. They can eat pork. They can break the Sabbath. No, you need to be loving them as yourselves and rebuking them. Because if you read Isaiah 11 here, verses 11 to 13, you'll see that the evil family of Judah who does not love their neighbors as themselves, they vex Ephraim, they get cut off. So Isaiah 11 here. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt, and from Pathros and from Cush, and from Elam and from Shinar, and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So they're all over the earth right now. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. So if you're an adversary in the tribe of Judah, and you're trying to be like an enemy to Ephraim, you're not actually loving him as yourself, he'll be cut off. So Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. So I know there's a bit of a rivalry going on there. They're kind of hating each other, but you have to be the bigger person. And I say the same thing to them as well. You have to love your neighbors yourself and rebuke their sin. Otherwise, you'll be cut off there. So four corners of the earth, they are the lost 10 tribes, so stop ignoring them. Go rebuke them. And you can even see in Ephesians 2 and Romans 11, even the ones that aren't lost 10 tribe by DNA, they are grafted into Israel, and they are required to follow the same rules as believers. They have to be part of the holy covenants of promise. So get them into those, get them into covenant. So the next issue we were going to touch on is the Sabbath day, and it's good that you guys are keeping that, but you aren't actually keeping it if you are doing it from evening to evening, which is a false Babylonian tradition that the Jewish people inherited from Babylon. So the Babylonians reckon their days from evening to evening, and you can see this in history. So when they were exiled there, that's when they adopted this tradition. But we're going to show you several Bible passages here that prove how biblical days are from morning to morning and not evening to evening. So Bible Thumper, he's going to start with a few here.
Right. Matthew 28 verse 1. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. Right? And that's just proof right there. So the end of the Sabbath was as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week. So the day starts in the morning, right? And then we go to Leviticus 7 verse 15. And the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving shall be eaten the same day that it is offered. He shall not leave any of it until the morning. So why would God make people not leave the sacrifice until the morning if the morning wasn't something new, right? It's because the morning's the start of the new day. And then in 1 Samuel 19 verse 10 through 11. And Saul sought to smite David, even to the wall with the javelin, but he slipped away out of Saul's presence. And he smote the javelin into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. Saul also sent messengers unto David's home to watch him and to slay him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, told him, Say, if thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain. Right? And yeah, that's what that means. And if you read Judges 16:2, it directly says at the end they were going to kill Samson, like, in the morning when it becomes day, we shall kill him. So it's just proof that in the morning the day starts, and that's how you should be keeping the Sabbath day.
Exactly. Because the Sabbath day is based on the days of creation. I'm going to get to that, but I'm going to read one verse before that. So Genesis 19, verses 33, 34. This is a really good example. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. So yesternight, think about that. How can it be yesternight if days begin at evening and not at dawn? So very clearly, days begin at dawn right there. So you must observe Sabbath from Saturday dawn to Sunday dawn. And the common objection people will have is the days of creation. Oh, didn't evening come before morning? Well, you have to pay close attention there. So I'll read verse 5. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So first of all, notice he names day before night. And then there was evening and there was morning the first day. So people say, oh, evening comes first. But no, look at that. He does all his work during the daytime, then comes evening, then comes morning the first day. And if you even check the Hebrew, the evening, Arab, and the morning, Boker, those words aren't 12-hour periods. Those are just transitionary periods. It would have been better phrased as sunset and sunrise. So it's literally impossible for the idea that evening and morning is the first day to be possible because that's not even 24 hours. That's just two transitionary periods. So it's saying God does all his work during the day, then sunset, sunrise, and the day ends at sunrise of the next day. So observe the Sabbath day from dawn to dawn, not from evening to evening. It's going in error. And it says this polluted Sabbath, this polluted rest will destroy you in Micah 2, verse 10. So this is an important issue. You must observe Sabbath correctly. So next, the feast days. So Passover, Tabernacles, trumpets. I want to say this right off the bat. We're not saying that these were abolished or that the Torah changed or something like that. We're saying that we cannot be doing these feasts outside of the inheritance because Deuteronomy 12 and 16, which Bible Thumper, he's gonna go over that a little bit. It says that we have to wait until we are in the inheritance and we don't even have a correct calendar. So you want to go ahead and do your thing there, Bible Thumper?
Yeah, so Deuteronomy 12 and 16, it makes it very clear that you can't do the feasts in like a way that you want to do them, but you have to do them the way God wants to do them, right? So it says also, I think in Deuteronomy 12 that you can't or you shouldn't sacrifice in like in a way that he says not to. Like he makes it very clear where you have to sacrifice, why you have to sacrifice and like when you do it too, right? And also we don't have the calendar, that's another thing. But it talks about the reason they did the feasts in the wilderness is because they had the altar and they had the ark, I think it was, and
Tabernacle.
God specifically commanded them to do it in that way at that time until he brought them into the promised land, which he told them, okay, now I'm going to have my temple and you're going to do it there. I'm going to put my name in the temple. But another reason to skip over the Passover or any other feast is because we're in captivity. And Daniel did that too. So in Daniel 10, verse 1 through 4, it says, in the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto me, Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long. And he understood the thing and had an understanding of the vision. In those days I, Daniel, mourned 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine into my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 weeks were fully completed. In the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hedikil, right? 24th day of the first month. And if you go back 3 weeks, that means you skipped over Passover. So you can't be doing the feast while you're in captivity either, or in a way that you're not sanctified.
Exactly. So Daniel, it was 21 days he was fasting. He fasted over the entire Passover season during the first month, and he was not cut off for not observing the Passover because he was a righteous man. He knew the law. He knew that we have to wait until we return to the inheritance to even be doing these things. So seriously, go study Deuteronomy 12 and 16. The place that the Lord places his name is in Jerusalem. That's where we're supposed to be doing it. It says his name is going to be in Jerusalem forever. In 2 Kings 21:7, among other different places. You should know, like the place where he puts his name, that's Jerusalem forever. So go read that. And then also another good spot to check out, Acts 18, verse 21 and 20, verse 16. Paul in the New Testament, he had to return to Jerusalem in order to do the feasts. So I'm going to read what it says in the King James Version and compare this to whatever version you use if it's not the KJV. Because what they actually do in a lot of Jewish inspired New Testaments is they remove this because it does not agree with their doctrine that you can do the feast outside the land. So this is what it says in the KJV, and this is in the original Greek. But he bade them farewell, saying, I must by all means keep this feast that cometh in Jerusalem, but I will return again unto you, if God will. And he sailed from Ephesus. So if you check that in another version, especially Jewish inspired New Testaments, this will be removed. It will just say, but God will, and he sailed from Ephesus. So that's one example. Paul, another righteous man, he did not do the feasts in exile. He waited, or not exile, but in the Gentile nations, and he waited until he was back in Jerusalem. So what else did I have written down? Another thing with the calendar, Revelation 22, verse 2, this disproves the whole 13-month calendar that a lot of the Jews use. So in the midst of the street of it, and of either side of the river was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nation. So there's 12 months in the correct calendar. So the Hillel one, that is not correct because it has 13 months. So don't follow that. In fact, if you even check the accounts in the Gospels, the Messiah celebrated the Passover on a different day than the Jews. He did it on a Tuesday, and the Jews all did it the day after on a Wednesday in the midst of the week when he was slain, as it says in Daniel 9. And I'm not going to get into like the whole story there, but the point is he did the Passover meal on the day before the Jews all did the Passover. So the calendar was already screwed up back then, so it definitely is not going to be restored now. So wait until God restores this thing. He's going to be the one to restore us to the promised land. He's going to be the one to restore the feasts. So wait until we do that. We're not supposed to be feasting right now. So I think Bible Thumper has a couple more verses to show here.
Yeah, so another thing was the feasts were actually taken away as a reproach to what people had done. They did idolatry, so they got kicked out of the land. So they also can't keep the feast anymore because they got kicked out of the land, right? So Zephaniah 3 verse 18 says in the CJB Bible, I will gather those of yours who grieve over the appointed feasts and bear the burden of reproach. And in brackets it says because they cannot keep them. And also, if
Exactly.
you go to Isaiah 1, verse 10 through 15, it says, Hear the word of the Lord, ye rulers of Sodom, and give ear unto the law, ye people of Gomorrah. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith the Lord? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks or lambs or of he goats. When he come before me, who hath required this at your hand to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations, incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths and the calling of assemblies I cannot away with. It is iniquity, even the solemn meeting. Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hateth. They are a trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when you make any prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. And what does it say in Proverbs? He who turns his ear from hearing the law, even their prayer is an abomination. And these guys' hands were full of blood because they weren't fulfilling the royal law, like we read in the Watchman chapter.
Exactly. So he's basically rebuking Judah here specifically, if you check the beginning of the chapter, because the Jews, what they're doing is they're doing these feasts in a profane land where they're not supposed to be doing them on the wrong calendar. It even says he hates your guys' Sabbaths because you're doing it wrong. You're doing the evening to evening Babylonian one. What you guys need to be doing, fix that, and then start actually fulfilling the royal law. Don't have blood on your hands, like it says in Ezekiel 33. Go actually do it. Like warn people to repent so that they don't die. Because you're a spiritual murderer if you're actually like just hating them in your heart and you're not actually rebuking their sin. Because if they're breaking the Sabbath day, if they're eating pork, they're going to be destroyed, especially if they're doing Christmas, like literal idolatry. You guys need to rebuke them for that. Don't just be tolerant of that. If you don't say anything, you're a partaker of their sins. So another really great example of why you shouldn't be doing the feast right now. This is in 1 Samuel 15. This is a great one. So I'm just going to read these two verses, but basically the context of this chapter, if you're not familiar, Saul is told to completely and utterly destroy the land of the Amalekites, but he spares some of the cattle for burnt offerings. So he disobeys the full instruction of the Lord, and he tries to give him offerings that he did not ask for when he wasn't supposed to be. So this is what Samuel says when he rebukes him for this. And Samuel said, that the Lord is great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king. So the many called and the few chosen, well, the few chosen, the kings, they are not going to be rejected because they listen to the full instruction of Torah, which says to wait until you are in your inheritance to do the feasts. But if you reject the full instruction, then you're going to be rejected from being one of those kings. So don't be the many called that aren't chosen. Be chosen by listening to the full instruction. Don't do the feast yet. Wait. Go fulfill the royal law right now. Find God's lost sheep of Israel. Because the true bride, if you read Matthew 9:15, they're going to be fasting until the bridegroom returns. They're not going to be feasting. So don't be Esau who sells his inheritance for a meal. Go actually find the lost sheep. Don't be the evil shepherd of Ezekiel 34 who feeds himself instead of feeding the lost sheep the gospel, the Ten Commandments. So I think other than that, we just have a few extra other things, but those are the main issues. But actually, this is a pretty important issue but it's rare. So don't be more treacherous. Uh, than Israel. So I'm just going to read this from Jeremiah 3 because it seems like there are some Messianic synagogues, unfortunately, which are doing Christmas and, Easter, and they're not supposed to be doing that. Like, you should know that that's wrong. It's idolatry. It's not in the Bible. It's pagan feasts. This is what God says about this in Jeremiah 3, verse 6. The Lord said also unto me in the days of Josiah the king, Hast thou seen that which backsliding Israel hath done? She is gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there hath played the harlot. And I said, After she had done all these things, Turn thou unto me. But she returned not, and her treacherous sister Judah saw it. And I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away, and given her a bill of divorce, yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. And it came to pass through the lightness of her whoredom that she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and with stocks. And yet for all this her treacherous sister Judah hath not turned unto me with her whole heart, but feignedly, saith the Lord. And the Lord said unto me, The backsliding Israel hath justified herself more than treacherous Judah. So do not be one of those Jews. Don't do Christmas. Like seriously, if you're in a synagogue that's doing Christmas, leave it because it shouldn't be doing that. Like you guys should know this, especially. Um, and then Bible Thumper, he had a couple things to mention about the name Jesus.
Yeah, the name Jesus, I mean, you should just it's just a pagan name. It's that's like the main thing about it. It's just a pagan name. They created their own hippie sun god. They combined all these god names together. They made a pagan name and they made their own god. And that's what's prophesied of in the Bible actually if you read John 5:42 to 43. But I know you that you have not the love of God in you, which is keeping his commandments. I am come in my Father's name, Yah, and you receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him ye will receive. So he comes in his Father's name, and his name means Yah saves, or Yahshua, or Yeshua, right? And another shall come in his own name. That's prophesied of in Jeremiah 28. So go read that. It's the name of Baal, which the prophets caused the people to err by the
You
name
say
of Baal.
Jeremiah 28?
Yeah, was it 28?
I think it's 23. Yeah, so
Oh
check
yeah,
out
it's
Jeremiah
Jeremiah.
23.
Yeah, and also the other thing was make sure you fulfill the royal law again. It's in Proverbs 27, verse 5 through 6. It says, Open rebuke is better than secret love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. And it also says in First John, if you don't love your neighbor, you're a murderer because you hate them.
Right, yeah. So don't be tolerant of all these Christians that are breaking the commandments. Like you guys should know that you're supposed to be rebuking their sin. Do not tolerate their false doctrine, or else you're going to be a partaker of them. Don't just be like, oh, lovey, lovey, everyone to each to their own. Like, no, that's not what the Bible calls us to do. You guys, you need to rebuke their sin. So stop letting them do Christmas, breaking the Sabbath, eating pork. That's like the big ones that they don't know that they're doing wrong. So, go fulfill the royal law, stop feasting right now, and then correct your guys' Sabbath day. Like you need to find the lost 10 tribes. And I think I'm kind of just repeating myself at this point. Do you have anything else to add, Wild Thumper, before I end this video?
Yeah, I just wanted to read Psalm 40, verse 6. Sacrifice and offering thou didst not desire. Mine ear thou hast opened. Burnt offering and sin offering thou hast not acquired. Right? Or required, sorry. And the ear is being opened. If you've read your Old Testament, you would know that refers to servanthood, which is also the key of David. So go watch that video as well. It's very important to know that he doesn't desire sacrifice, he doesn't desire your oblation more than he desires obedience.
Exactly, yeah. Key of David is an awesome promise in Revelation that we have. So I do have a video on that. You can go check that out if you want. But yeah, I think we've restated the main points a lot. So repent, Judah. You need to be doing these things.